Here's the situation. Hypothetically, you've been using substances like psychedelics, LSD, mushrooms, salvia divinorum for about 30 years. And because you've practiced a lot, you're pretty good at it. You're also an artist who's interested in filmmaking. And so you combine these things to create a YouTube channel about what you love, which is taking drugs in a responsible way. And you're interested in harm reduction, you're interested in the culture and art around that world, and also the philosophy and spirituality of psychedelics, hypothetically. So you start making videos about it, but you realize that there are rules, about this. And Google, who owns YouTube, doesn't always like all of your videos and doesn't always like all of your content. So you have to be very careful. Sometimes they say it has to be over 18. Sometimes, once in a while, they take off one of your videos. So you start learning about how these rules really work and really just get into the gray area of what you can do. Well, you have some success, hypothetically, a little bit of success. And after a couple of years and a few dozen videos, you are ready to qualify to monetize your channel. Because you have qualified, and that means hypothetically that you'll be swimming in money from ad revenue. Uh, that will probably not happen to very many people. But the question becomes, do you hit the little button to apply for the YouTube partner program? On one hand, if they let you in, it creates a little bit of income, which is cool. And it also has other perks that I won't go into because who cares? But there are other perks too that are actually pretty important. On the other hand, part of the application process is that there will be actual human beings at Google looking at your channel and looking at your pretty face on your videos and looking in your underwear drawer and deciding whether or not you're really following the rules. And that is a little bit scary because you're in the gray area and you know that they could potentially not only monetize you, but even worse, really come down and maybe even get rid of your channel. And that's not what you want. Well, this happened to me, and I qualified a few weeks ago, a few months ago actually, and have been looking at that little button for this whole time. But I don't want to lose my channel because I like making videos like this. But this weekend I said, fuck it, I'm going to do it. It's not because I'm going to really make any money off of it, but there are the other perks I would really like. We won't go into it because they're not that interesting in this context. Anyway, it's not hard. You go through you have to hit a button a couple of times, and then it says, we'll get back to you in 1 month. Well, in my case, they got back to me in 4 hours. And they said, no, 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 no. They are not interested in being my partner because they don't send any kind of personalized message, even though they said that a human being was going to look at it. I don't think it actually made it to that level. I think that they probably have a filtering system, and Google's all robots, It's funny, they have so many employees, they make a lot of money, but they are not very personal, are they? So one of their higher up managerial robots decided that they didn't want to work with me. But you're watching this video because they didn't take my channel off of the internet. And so I'm actually pretty happy about it. This is sort of hanging over my head. I felt like I was living in a closet in the gray area. Oh my gosh, is YouTube going to take my channel away? And that's really why I applied. I just wanted to you might say, come clean and see what happened. Because I want to be able to be more liberal and more open with my channel and not worry about the Google cops. So even though I am not making money off of ad revenue, And I am not a Google partner. I feel pretty good about having done this, and it makes me feel a lot more safe. And if you have a similar kind of hypothetical channel, maybe this helps you make a decision on this topic. Now that we have gotten through all of those details, why don't we celebrate our defeat with a bowl of salvia divinorum, which you can do on YouTube. You just can't sell it. It's so funny how I live in this gray area of the law, both the legal laws and the laws of our Google overlords. And what it is that I'm doing is so small. All I'm doing is modulating my mind slightly for a few minutes with low doses of salvia. Well, of course, I do other drugs too, mostly psychedelics, but uh, the world gets so bent out of shape over what you're doing to modulate your own mind. And the irony is that everything we do, it's basically, simplistically put, mostly dopamine based. All of your behaviors, they're just to get a dopamine rush. You know, that's what motivation is. Dopamine is the motivation, the desire um, correlate in your brain. So there's people, horrible drug addicts who are looking for the next fix. They just desperately want to change their mind, or psychonauts who aren't desperate and are actually pretty darn healthy, but they're doing things to change their minds too. And again, the powers that be come on us and label us as things and don't like us. Although, mostly in the case of psychonauts, the powers that be don't even know that we exist. The idea of a drug user that isn't a fucked up, homeless person shooting up in the street, most people just don't even realize that that's a possibility. We're just in the crossfire of the drug war, really, mostly. And then, but once you get used to this world, the way that I am and the way that a lot of my viewers are, you realize what a small thing it is. You're just doing what everybody else does, trying to feel a certain way and uh, modulating the chemistry of your brain a little bit in order to change your point of view subjectively a little bit. And everybody's doing this all the time, whether you use substances to go directly there or not. And then the use of things like salvia in order to go there directly is really just efficient once you know how to do it. I mostly use salvia as a meditation tool, really. It's not that amazing. Sometimes I might take enough to hallucinate, maybe, but usually I don't. And even if I do, so what? What's the big deal? And yet, it's a big fucking deal, as we know. It's just odd for someone like myself, who's a little bit of a public figure, just out there representing these kinds of things, taking these kinds of legal risks, social risks, professional risks. And for what? It's just, well, I mean, once you're used to it, it doesn't seem like a very big deal at all. But from the outside, it's like, oh wow, that's a big deal. And this has been going on for thousands of years. People um, use these efficient methods of modulating their consciousness, and people who don't do that, or well, let's just say people who don't do that don't understand it and are very resistant to it and become oftentimes violently antagonistic, because that's what these rules are, right? If you take down my channel, that's an act of violence. Ultimately, it hurts me, right? Or if you arrest somebody, that's an act of violence. You might not be hitting them over the head with a stick, but particularly in the case of criminal justice, this hitting somebody over the stick is implied, right? I might take a little bit of a salvia. It comes out to me at kind of a head rush, but it's almost like a door that I can go into. I leave the world just a little bit. I My identification with my body and with the world and with my narrative about the world loosens a little bit, becomes much more fluid, becomes much more um, voluntary. Participation in the world becomes more voluntary. I can opt out of even identifying with reality at all. I suppose it's that ability that is where a lot of the negativity socially comes from. If you're getting to the point where you can opt out of social obligations, social um, agreements, you might say, and oftentimes these are like legal agreements or contracts, but also, I mean, even really basic stuff like what is your name and what is your species and how does the world work? Because I can turn off that belief system within the meditative state. And you can see why folks don't want you to do that because they are stakeholders and they're very committed to that egoic cognitive structure, and they don't want anybody shaking its foundation. So, what seems like a very simple thing to the psychonaut, oh, I'm just going to leave the world for a little while and go explore and come back, not a big deal. But to people who aren't on that ride, it is a big deal. And some of them are willing to get in a fight about it. All right, well, I think I'm going to move on with my day.